Hey, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, good. How you doing?
I'm
Can you
doing,
hear me?
yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. We're live right now. So I want to introduce you to my friends Amy and Jennifer.
Hi there.
Well, hi, Amy. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Amy.
I'm Jen.
And we also have two other people on here named Tiff and Larissa as well.
Tiff's my moderator for right now, so that everybody will behave.
Hello. If you need any additional mods, I'm more than willing to assist if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Naveed, this is a 5-minute call, right? Then after that, it'll be 15 minutes?
No, this is a 20-minute call.
Okay, because it said you have a free call, so I thought that it was one of those free 5-minute calls.
No, it's a prepaid. I'm using my funds.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. You don't have to. I have money on my account, but you don't have to when you call back.
I might as well just use mine because I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right, cool. So, Naveed, to start us off, before you read your statement, can you give a little background on your case, like maybe like a 2-minute background on what happened when you were convicted, what you were sentenced to, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I have an introduction. Can I read my introduction?
Yeah, does that sum up the crimes too?
Yeah, it sums up the crime too.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. The mental health system is broken in our country. My diagnosis is on the schizophrenia spectrum. A contributor to my shooting was being prescribed the antidepressant Effexor, which can induce psychosis in rare cases, and Lamictal, a mood stabilizer, which can cause suicidal ideation, along with Effexor. Hello, my name is Naveed Haq. First of all, I would like to apologize to the people I harmed and to the Jewish community. I especially want to apologize to Ms. Pamela Wechter's family. She's the woman who died in my shooting. Effexor is a powerful antidepressant that put me into mania and psychosis over the course of the year preceding the shooting. I deteriorated at that time, and the medications contributed to my actions. I became delusional, and the whole thing was a big suicide attempt caused by both Lamictal and Effexor. I did not expect to live through the crime. I'm not an extremist. I am a person suffering from mental illness. The reason why I chose the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle as my ultimate target was because there was a war going on in the Middle East in 2006. In retrospect, the Jewish Federation was doing a walk for Israel as a peaceful protest, and I should have done a peaceful counter protest. I should not have brought guns to the Jewish Federation's office. However, the Effexor caused delusions that I could alter wars in the Middle East. If I had been in my right mind, I would have turned myself in to my mental health therapist, father, or to the police. I have to live with this regret. I needed mental health help. The help in jail and prison for mental health has been so much better than what I received in the community. The mental health system failed me. I did not have continuity of care after I lost my private health insurance and got put on Medicaid. I fell through the cracks of the mental health system. My medication nurse and psychiatrist did not switch me off Effexor and Lamictal. However, with all these mitigating circumstances, I want to make it clear, I take full responsibility for my crime. A couple footnotes I have to my introduction is number one, Stahl's Essential Psychopharmacology, the Prescriber's Guide, 7th edition, Stephen M. Stahl. And number two, the Indian Journal of Psychiatry, mental vaccine-induced psychotic symptoms by A.T. Safiq and Denzel Pinto. These sources prove that the medications contributed to my shooting. So with that, I open up for questions and constructive criticism.
Okay, thank you for that, Naveed. Before I start, does anybody have any questions or comments? Not everybody at one time now.
When were you diagnosed? You were diagnosed before it happened?
Yeah, I was diagnosed before it happened. I was diagnosed when I was 20 in Philadelphia in 1996. And the crime happened in 2006. So I had a 10-year documented history of mental health when I committed my crime.
What makes the crime a hate crime? Like, explain that part.
Unfortunately, at that time, there was a rivalry between the Jewish community and the Muslim community in the Middle East because of the conflict in Israel.
Okay.
And I won't say that I hated Jews particularly a lot, but I did have some animosity toward Jews at that time because of the conflict in the Middle East. And that conflict continues to flare up even to this day, what's going on in the Middle East. So I'm no longer anti-Semitic. I want to make that clear. I have had constructive dialogue with the Jewish community since I've been down, trying to make amends for my crime. I have also talked to Jewish prisoners and Jewish professors who are teaching me here in the prison. So I made an effort to make amends for my crime to the Jewish community.
So, Naveed, somebody asked, what medications are you currently prescribed at the present time?
Currently, I'm being prescribed Laxopine and Risperdal. They're both antipsychotics, and Prozac, which is an antidepressant. And it's a good cocktail of medications. I'm able to function well, get out of bed, be productive during the day, not have hallucinations, delusions, or psychosis. Right now, I'm functioning pretty well.
Does your family have a history of mental illness? Or diagnosed or undiagnosed? Either way, I guess.
On my mom's side of the family, my aunt takes Abilify, and then I have an uncle in Pakistan who self-medicates with alcohol. So my family history on my mom's side, we do have a family history of bipolar and schizophrenia.
Somebody also asked, what were the symptoms leading up to your diagnosis in 1996?
Well, I was basically out of my mind. My mind was racing, and I was having highs and lows because I have both. I used to have what they call, when I say the schizophrenia, my diagnosis is schizoaffective bipolar type. That means I have a psychotic component and a mood component to my diagnosis. So my bipolar started when I was 15, and my schizophrenia started when I was about 20, 21. And the symptoms leading up to that time were I was having like hypersensitivity. I could feel people's feelings. I could read people's minds. I was having delusions, hallucinations. A lot of thoughts were being placed in my head, voices, highs and lows, mood fluctuations, all those sorts of things. I was really non-functional before I got on meds. Any other questions?
Yeah, so were you hearing voices and seeing things at the time of the shooting took place? Like that moment in time, were you hearing anything? Were you seeing anything? Was anybody telling you to kill or hurt people?
No one was telling me to kill or hurt people, but the medications effects they have side effects of suicidal ideation and also homicidal ideation. And I have an article here by the Indian Journal of Psychiatry. It shows effects or induces psychotic symptoms. This was an article published in 2009. So basically, what's in the article and what happened to me match up. I had delusions, and my delusion was that I could alter wars in the Middle East by going to the Jewish Federation and attacking it. And I did have some voices while I was there. I heard a voice say murder. I heard a voice say awesome when I was shooting. I saw the victims glowing. That was a visual hallucination. So I did have some hallucinations. But the main component that was a psychosis was the illusions that I could alter wars in the Middle East with my actions at the Jewish Federation. And that was medication-induced by the Fixer and the Lamictal. And it was the biggest suicide attempt, too, because I wanted to commit suicide at the time. And the Fixer and Lamictal put me in that mindset where I wanted to kill myself.
Jen or Amy, can you scroll up and read those other questions? Because I can't, my screen is cracked and I can't see them.
Yeah, hang on one second.
What was his early life behaviorally, whatever? Like, how was the behavior in early life?
My behavior in early life was actually, I was a pretty hyper kid. My mom had a hard time controlling me. And, but at that time, I wasn't put on Ritalin or Adderall or anything like that.
Right.
I played soccer in elementary school. I basically got good grades. So I was a good kid. I didn't get in trouble. I was kind of a loner. I went to an all-white school, and I was the only minority, so I had to deal with racism. And I was kind of an outcast because a lot of people thought I was a foreigner, and I'm not a foreigner. I'm born in the United States, born in Cleveland, and raised in Eastern Washington. But there was that perception that since I had foreign parents, I was a foreigner myself. So there was some racism, xenophobia, and Islamophobia that I had to deal with growing up, especially in Eastern Washington, which is a very conservative area of the state. So it was a rough childhood, but I had loving parents, and my parents doted on me and gave me everything I wanted and took care of me. And I had a happy childhood, even though I was a loner at school. And I had made a lot of friends in the Muslim community.
Did you have any misdiagnosis at the beginning when you were first starting to undergo treatment?
In the beginning, they diagnosed me with bipolar 2, which is a less severe form of bipolar. And then they diagnosed me with bipolar 1. And then they diagnosed me with schizoaffective bipolar type. And the Social Security Administration, when I applied for benefits, they diagnosed me with schizophrenia and schizoaffective. And that's probably more closer to the correct diagnosis. Now my bipolar is under control, and I'm just suffering from schizophrenia and depression. So right now my bipolar is in remission.
Okay.
And with the medications, schizophrenia is under control right now too. So I'm functioning at a high level right now.
That's good. Okay, so somebody asked, can you expand a little more on how your delusions contributed to the Jewish population specifically?
My delusions at the time when I was induced by a fixer, and there was a war going on in the Middle East at the time. It was between Hezbollah and Israel, and then Israel and Gaza. And I thought that I could help my people in the Middle East through my actions at the Jewish Federation by somehow getting attention of the government and having them withdraw their troops from Lebanon and from Gaza. I know it sounds crazy, but these were the delusions I was having, that I could alter wars in the Middle East through my actions in the Middle East and having at the Jewish Federation. So that was the delusion I was having then. Grandiose delusions, like I was bigger than I actually was, and that I could make these changes in Middle East foreign policy for Israel and America by my actions at the Jewish Federation. So obviously, I'm just one man, and my actions at the Jewish Federation could never do that. But I was delusional at the time, so that's what I believed.
Next question we have is, as a younger child, did you display any kind of behaviors? I guess what's the earliest you started displaying issues?
Say that one more time, please.
When did you
early-
first start exhibiting issues early on in your childhood? Like, when did you first start? When was the warning signs, I guess you could say? When did they start?
Okay, I started having mental health issues in junior high school. When I was in 13, 14 years old, I started withdrawing and isolating. And my bipolar kicked in when I was 15. And the schizophrenia started when I was about 20, 21. So, I want to make it clear that the violence at the Jewish Federation is an aberration in my history. I've never been violent before the Jewish Federation shooting, and my record in prison has been stellar. I have exhibited no violence in my history in prison, in incarceration. So this shooting that I did at the Jewish Federation is an aberration in my history. The violence there was a tragic mistake, and I have to live with that regret. But it's not the real me. The reason why it happened was because of the medication side effects. It put me in the mindset where I had the psychosis, delusions, and suicidal ideation from the Limbic and the Apexer. It contributed to the shooting. I would say that it was the major contributing factor. It was a major contributing factor to the shooting. The medications. Hey, our time is almost up. You want me to call back?
Yes, please, if you can.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I'll come back in a second.
Okay, so what was what were the other questions, Amy?
So two questions. One is, how do you feel about the current events with Gaza now that you are stabilized? That's the first one.
Yeah, I wish that there would be a two-state solution in the Middle East between the Israelis and Palestinians. I think the only way that there will be a peace between the Israelis and the Palestinian people is if there's a negotiated settlement and they come to some terms where there's Israel and Palestinian state living side by side in peace. Maybe the Palestinian state has to be demilitarized so that the Israelis can have security, but they should have security guarantees. The Israelis should. But that's what I think. I think the only way there will be peace is if there's a negotiated settlement. And unfortunately, both sides have extremists on both sides. The Israeli government does not want to have a two-state solution. Hamas does not want to have a two-state solution. So we have to look for moderates on both sides to come together and somehow crowd out the extremists so that there can be a negotiated settlement. That's the only way that there will be peace, unless technology somehow gets to a point where they can just somehow overwhelm the Palestinians. But that time might be coming. But I hope that there will be negotiated settlement and that there will be peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And both of them have a right to that land. The Israelis, their ancestors to that land. The Palestinians, their ancestors to that land. They trace their lineage to the Philistines. So both of them have ancestral ties to that land. They're both a part of that land. So I hope they can somehow come to terms with one another to have a peaceful solution.
Okay. The other question was going back to like your, I guess like your childhood and stuff like that. Like, what was what did your parents, like, did your parents pick up on any of this? Like, what was their attitude towards mental health intervention? And basically, was there something, that could have been done differently that would have led to a different outcome from where you are now?
See, 30 years ago, there wasn't too much awareness of bipolar and schizophrenia. So my parents had no idea. They never even heard of bipolar and schizophrenia, especially coming from Pakistani culture. And even in American culture, it was not well known. It was not well publicized. Mental health there wasn't as much awareness about it, and there was more of a stigma to it back about 30, 40 years ago. So there wasn't anything different that could have been done, unfortunately. I had to diagnose myself. I went to college at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York, in upstate New York, and I took a psychology class, and that's where I first learned about these terms, schizophrenia and bipolar. And I'm a psychology minor, so I studied psychopharmacology, I studied introduction to psychology, psychomotivation, I studied some other psychology classes, and I learned about how bipolar works, how schizophrenia works, and I was able to see that what's going on in my own life seems to be what was in the textbook. So when I was in Philadelphia and struggling in dental school, I went to a psychiatrist. I said, hey, I think I have bipolar disorder. And he said, here, keep a journal for a month on your mood. And it was up and down for the whole month. He said, yes, you have bipolar. So that was, then I found another psychiatrist, and he put me on lithium, and that helped at first. I was able to pass my first year of dental school. So, unfortunately, the awareness of mental health did not exist back then. So, I don't fault my parents. They did the best they could with what they knew. But unfortunately, the mental health there wasn't awareness of it at that time. Does that answer your question?
It does. What's your sentence?
Say that again?
What's your sentence that you're serving right now?
My sentence is life without the possibility of parole plus 120 years.
And the life without parole is for the murder, and then the 120 years is for the attempted murder counts, correct?
The aggravated murder gave me life without the possibility of parole. I got 87.5 years for the 5 attempted murders. The other charges, hate crime and hostage taking, unlawful imprisonment, that was run concurrent to my other charges. And I got 33 years in weapons enhancements. So altogether it's LWOP plus that's short for life without possibility of parole plus 120.5 years.
Okay. Is there anything that you are currently doing at the prison or through the prison to, help others who might be going through the same thing?
Absolutely. I'm trying to join this one group right now. It's called Peer Mentorship, where I'm a peer support, and I always try to uplift people around me. I try to tell people around here that we're incarcerated and it sucks, but it's better than being homeless. So a lot of the people I'm locked up with, I'm locked up in the residential treatment unit in the mental health section of the prison. And a lot of the people I'm locked up with, almost all of them are disabled. They have mental health problems, just like me. So when a lot of them were homeless in the community, or a lot of them struggled in the community. So I try to remind them that we have all the amenities of incarceration right now. I mean, in prison, we have air conditioning, we have all the food we want. Basically, we have mental health care, we have medical care, we have video games, we have tablets, we have TVs, radios. We have limited internet, like education. We have law library. We have a lot of amenities here, and we have access to jobs, prison jobs, so we can make extra money per store. So I try to remind people of the positives that the situation that we're in, and I try to make it so it's not so bad. I try to tell people it's not so bad. It could be worse. We could be homeless in the sweltering heat. We could be in winter. We could be in the freezing cold. We could be outside facing the elements, not knowing where our next meal is. We could be getting high for those people who are addicts and not taking care of ourselves. We can take care of ourselves better here in incarceration. So I try to remind the people around me that look at the positives, that at least we're not homeless.
Let's see. I think we're caught up on questions.
Okay. All right. So Naveed, if it were up to you today or a board of your peers, do you believe that you should be released into society? Why or why not?
I still take full responsibility for my crime, even though there are mitigating circumstances, especially the medications. So I want to do enough time so as not to disrespect the people that I harmed. I do deserve some punishment, but at some point I'm going to try to get clemency because I have extraordinary circumstances. That's what clemency requires, extraordinary circumstances. And my mitigating circumstances conform to that opinion. So eventually I would like to be released, I'm going to try for it, and I know it's a long shot, but I think I deserve it, and it's because my history is not of violence. This is an aberration in my history, and it's unfortunate that this tragic mistake happened and that people were harmed. His Pamela Lecter's family, the other women that were harmed. It's just an unfortunate tragedy. It's a terrible accident. So I do wish to someday be released, but I've become comfortable in prison. So if I don't get released, it's not the end of the world. But I would like to someday walk out a free man, because one of the professors I had in African American Literature program at Italy Heights Correctional Center, he once told me prison is the minor leagues and society is the major leagues. So I would like to graduate someday from the minor leagues to the major leagues. I think it is something that I would wish to happen. But if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world.
So have you come to terms with living your rest of your days out in prison should you not be released?
Well, it is something that can happen, that I'll be in prison for the rest of my life. And I can take solace that there was no other way for me to get out of prison. Because after the first trial, they offered me a 45-year deal with only 2.5 years good time. So I would have been out when I'm 73. But my health is not very good right now. I have diabetes, I have hypertension, I have cardiac problems, I have schizophrenia, I'm a little overweight. So I have all these health problems. And chances are, I'll be lucky to make it to 73. I hope I do, but I'll be lucky if I do. Especially in prison, there's accelerated aging for long-term prisoners because it's a stressful environment. So I tried my best, to get out of prison. If I would have taken the deal, I would have been out when I'm 73. But I don't think I'll make it that long. So I had to take a different approach, and that was the clemency approach. And I'm hoping laws change. Like House Bill 1189, if that one is passed or reintroduced and passed, that would bring back expanded clemency. So there are some options that I could possibly get out. But I have to understand that it may not happen. And if it doesn't happen, I have to be ready for that possibility. So it's sad, but it's something that I know I can make. If that bridge happens, I'll cross it, and I'll make it no matter what. So I'm comfortable in prison, and I'm doing well, and I'm helping people, and I hope I'm given a second chance, and someday I graduate to the major leagues.
So somebody asked, how long after you were convicted did it take you to realize you were wrong or to develop remorse for your crimes?
I developed remorse almost immediately. Yeah, as soon as I shot and killed Miss Pamela Lecter, the woman, and I saw her dead body, I felt a deep sadness that I saw the body. So I felt remorse right away. And my plans for that day were actually worse. I actually wanted to kill as many people as I could. But when I got there, and some people were nice to me, I couldn't go through with my plans. So I stopped shooting after one clip, and I surrendered to police. And I wanted to survive after the 911 operator reminded me that I have a family that cares about me. And I got emotional that, oh yeah, now I remember I do have a reason to live. So I was suicidal at the time. And when I was reminded of my family, that gave me the reason for me to surrender to police and to survive. So I felt remorse right away, and I'm just lucky to survive. I'm lucky that I have this extra time, that I survived this long, and that I'm still living. Because life is a blessing. It's a blessing to be alive. Even in incarceration, there's still a reason to live. So I'm so happy that I was given the extra time on this earth. Yeah, I could have possibly been killed that day, and I'm very lucky. The police response was one of the largest in Seattle history, so I'm very lucky to be alive. And so I hope someday that I'm given a second chance, but just having extra time is a blessing, you know.
There was a question about, was this planned or was it something that happened impulsively?
No, this is planned over a week or two. I was going to do a shooting, and the Jewish Federation was not my first target. I was thinking about doing a shooting in Tri-Cities, Richland, Pasco, Kennewick, Washington, Eastern Washington. And I was thinking about shooting up a bar or a Costco, but maybe target the Jewish Federation was I was watching news on CNN, and I saw that there was a war going on in the Middle East, and suddenly my attention got dragged to the war, and I was looking at possible targets on the internet, and I saw that the Jewish Federation was doing a walk for Israel, a peaceful protest. And so that made me angry that Lebanese women and children are being killed, and Palestinian women and children are being killed and bombed, yet they're doing a walk for Israel. So that directed my rage at the time that I was getting from the medications towards the Jewish Federation. And so that's how the planning happened. It was originally a plan to do a shooting in Tri-Cities, and then my attention got directed to the Jewish Federation. I got my guns, and then that Friday, that I got received my guns on Thursday. Then that Friday, I drove from Tri-Cities to Seattle, and I did the shooting.
Can you call right back?
So it was planned. Yeah, I'll call back.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
What was the original motivation for a mass shooting?
The motivation was, I was not in my right mind because I was under the influence of prescription medication that my psychiatrist prescribed me. And it made me have psychosis, delusion, suicidal ideation. It put me in that mind state. That was the motivation. The meds are what gave me the motivation to do mass shooting, because I wanted to die in the process of doing the mass shooting. It was a suicide attempt. So I had come to the end of my rope, and I thought it was the end of my life. And I was having all sorts of problems in my life at the time. I was having relationship problems, financial problems, housing problems, family problems, all sorts of problems. And it was just like a perfect storm. And I wanted to end my life. I could think of no other way of ending my life. I couldn't actually pull the trigger on myself. I tried that before, and I I couldn't do it. So I wanted to die through a mass shooting. That was the motivation. And it was the medications that put me in that mindset to do it that way. Does that make sense?
In a sense, yeah. Somebody asked, is there anything that could have prevented this mass shooting from happening?
The only thing that could have prevented the mass shooting is like a month before, I tried to get a bed in a mental hospital. And then I was turned away because they said that there was no bed space. Second of all, my medication nurse who was seeing me at the time, she referred me to a psychiatrist only twice the whole year. And the psychiatrist didn't switch me off my medications, even though I was struggling. And I even told her I got arrested for the first time 6 months before the shooting. And I tried to tell her, hey, I'm trying to have trouble with the law. And she just ignored me. So the medication nurse is partially at fault here, too. Her name is Deborah Lush. I could have sued her, but I didn't have any money for an attorney at the time. And I didn't push the issue. But I should have sued her. She's a big reason this crime happened. She didn't switch me off Effexor and Lamictal. Another thing that could have stopped the crime is I could have turned myself in either to the mental health therapist, who was Brian Jones at the time. He asked me if I had any guns. He asked me that on Thursday, the day before the shooting. And I lied and I said no. So that's my fault. And then I could have turned myself into my father. I could have turned myself into the police officer that pulled me over that day. So it is, I take full responsibility. It is my fault. And I lied on the gun form too, but I purchased weapons. I said that I had never been hospitalized in a mental health facility, so I passed a background check. So I lied on the gun form. So I'm not innocent here. But there were ways that this crime could have been prevented, and it's my fault, and it's partially the mental health system failed me. So I take full responsibility though, because that's the right thing to do.
Does anybody have any more questions for Naveed? So Naveed, how do you feel about media coverage on mass shootings and mass murders? Do you think it contributes to them? Why or why not?
I think the media has gotten better about sensationalizing mass shootings. I think in the beginning, like in the early 2000s and in the 2010s, the media almost like glorified mass shootings. They just kept playing the scenes over and over again. And they would tell these mass shooters, tell their names, publicize their names, their motives. It was bad for a while. But I think the media has finally caught on that they were contributing to this mass shooting epidemic. And now they don't glorify the mass shootings like they used to. And they don't publicize the shooters' names like they used to either. So the coverage has gotten better. But I would say that it was a problem for a while. It certainly was.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad that they publicize the victims' names now more than the actual shooter or perpetrator these days, because it's more important to talk about the victims rather than the actual offender.
We have a question. Was he living alone at the time, or and did anyone know that he was planning this?
No, this was my own actions. No one participated in helping me. I locked the gun to myself. I kept it a secret from everyone. My father checked in on me to see if he could help me, if I needed help with anything. And I told him I was fine. I lied to him. I lied to the police officer. I lied to the mental health therapist. I lied to get my guns. I take full responsibility. I could have stopped this if I would have turned myself in. It's just a tragic mistake. And I wish I would have got that bed space a month before the mass shooting. It would have helped me get off these meds, the Fixer and the Victol, and then the crime could have been prevented that way too. So, or my medication nurse could have at least listened to my prompts. Unfortunately, I was on Medicaid at the time, which is a very poor health insurance. So she didn't take me seriously. So I was kind of thrown under the bus. But the mental health system failed me. The health insurance failed me, and I failed myself. So I take full responsibility.
Have you had any conversations at all with any of the victims of the families?
No,
Wait, I'm sorry, I said that all wrong.
Contact
The
orders.
families of the
Well,
victims.
unfortunately, I can't talk to my victims. But in the future, if they ever would want to have a dialogue with me and they want closure and they want to ask me questions, I'm open to that. But we would have to lift our no contact order and do it legally. So, unfortunately, in this country, they don't have rapprochement. They don't have the restorative justice in this country is not up to par. They don't have making amends with victims. It's not as widespread as in other countries. It would be better that way. But in this country, they put no contact orders on everyone, and so then we're not allowed to have closure. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully at some point I can have a dialogue with some of the people that I harmed and give them closure if they need it, or maybe this program will give them closure if they listen to it. So either way, I'm fine with it.
So Naveed, if the no contact order was lifted today and you had all of the surviving victims and the family member of the victim that passed away, what might you say to them to gain some type of closure?
I would tell them that, I'm not a monster. I apologize very deeply for my actions that day. I wish it would not have happened. I wish I would have done a peaceful counter-protest instead. I wish I would not have brought guns. I wish I would have never brought guns to the Jewish Federation's office. I wish things would have gone down differently. It's just a tragic mistake, a tragic error. It's almost like an accident because I was put on these medications, and then the news was blasting what was going on in the Middle East, and it's just unfortunate that I directed my rage at these innocent people. So I would apologize from the depth of my being to the people I harmed, and I would try my best to answer all the questions that they had. if they have any.
Somebody asked, were you inspired by any other mass shootings?
I would say no. I was not inspired by any other mass shootings. This mass shooting, mine in particular, was a suicide attempt. I just wanted to end my life at that time. I could think of no other way to end my life than to do it through a mass shooting. I thought for sure it would work, and when it didn't work, it was a big relief. It was just luck that it didn't work. So it's a blessing that I'm still alive, and I just it's just unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that I got to that point in my life where I was suicidal, but it was the medications that put me in that mind state, the Pexter and Lamictal, put me in that mind state, because the side effects of those medications are suicidal ideation. So it was just a big suicide attempt.
So Naveed, this next question, I mean, no offense by any means, but why wouldn't you have taken your own life rather than inflicting harm onto other families and other victims?
Yeah, unfortunately, I could think of no other way to kill myself. I know it sounds stupid, but honestly, it was cowardly. You know, I couldn't put the gun to my own head and pull the trigger. I tried that before, and I couldn't do it. I love life too much, but I was suicidal at the time, and I wanted to die by suicide by cop. So I thought most people in mass shootings die by suicide by cop. So I thought this was a perfect way for me to go. And it's unfortunate. I wish no one would have been harmed that day. I wish I would have got help before. Now, see, at that time, they didn't have the 988 number, the suicide risk prevention number. They have more opportunities now for people who are suicidal to reach out for help. Those avenues didn't exist back then. So it was unfortunate, but that was the only way I could think of the best way to think of to end my life. So it's unfortunate that people were harmed in the process. So it's just it's a tragedy.
Does anybody else have any questions for Naveed?
I wonder if the isolation as a child contributed to future, behaviors.
That's actually a very insightful question. I would say it absolutely had a lot to do with it. The isolation that I suffered through racism and Islamophobia and xenophobia in my formative years as a child helped contribute to my rage when I was older. And I would say that contributed to me wanting to end my life through a mass shooting. So I would say that's a very insightful question. It was a contributor. The isolation that I had when I was a child.
I would think it almost have to be, because
Absolutely.
you're inside your head, and then you get older, hormones, puberty, then you start needing medication that you weren't getting, and it's disaster.
Absolutely. That's it. That's exactly what happened. There was isolation, and then I wasn't getting help. One of my teachers told me I needed counseling. One of my high school teachers, I tried to give counseling. My guidance counselor told me that they didn't do it at the school. They didn't have that type of setup back then in 1994, where they gave therapy to students. So I had a roadblock there. I didn't get adequate help. And then even when I sought help, when I finally got it in 1996 with going to a psychiatrist and then finally starting to see a therapist in Philadelphia, it wasn't adequate care because I was still isolated at school. And I needed more of a support network. I didn't have the support network in the community that I do in prison. I have my psychologist, I have my psychiatrist, I have my therapist, I have my family now. My family's finally on board. I have friends. So I have a support network now. That support network didn't exist when I was growing up. So that isolation definitely contributed to the crime.
Have you had any issues in prison with other groups of people when they've learned that it was, a hate crime?
People have been respectful because I've been for murder, and there's a hierarchy in prison. 6 offenders are usually the lowest, along with stitches. And I'm neither. I don't tell on people.
You have 1 minute left.
And I'm not a 6 offender. So people are generally respectful towards me.
Can you call back one more time?
Sure thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, because I don't know like the complete background of your family, but what is the stance that Islam has in terms of the medical intervention and mental health? Like, does it prohibit it? Is it okay with it?
The Quran talks about mental health in places. It does talk about, it says that, like, God talks about how consoles the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says that you're not a mad poet, meaning you're not insane. So there are references to mental health in the Quran. And in some of the laws, Islamic law, it does talk about how you can have capital punishment if you were insane at the time. There's some case law for that. So mental health is regarded in the Islamic civilization. Now, that's in theory. In practice, like in Pakistan, there wasn't too much awareness of mental health, especially 30 years ago. Bipolar and schizophrenia. And even now, a lot of the mullahs, like a lot of the religious leaders, they will think that someone is possessed by a spirit, by a jinn. So they have very outdated knowledge on mental health. Some of the more affluent, the rich, they know more about mental health because they're educated. So then they would go to a mental health professional. So that's in Pakistan. Pakistani culture is still catching up. But, I was raised in America. So even 30 years ago in American culture, I had barely ever heard of bipolar or schizophrenia growing up. And it wasn't until I got into school and studied psychology in 1994 that I learned about what exactly was bipolar and schizophrenia. And that led me to diagnose myself.
How does Islam view modern medicine in general? And then the second part that I want to ask, just because I'm walking over to make a plate for my husband, My second question is, how does it view men in general? Like, does it see anything like that as a weakness that would, is there anything that's negative about it? We were just having this conversation earlier, so it's on my
Absolutely.
mind.
I'll answer the second question first. Absolutely, Islam sees it as a weakness. There's a big stigma to it. Mental health is a big stigma, and it's even bigger in Islam. In American culture, there's been a lot of publicity toward mental health, and the health is starting to spring up, starting to come up, and there's a lot more awareness now. People know about these terms: bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD, depression, major depression, personality disorder. People know about these terms now. So in Islam, they're still catching up. But in more rich Muslim countries, they have been more educated, and they have some professionals. Like one of my psychiatrists in the community was Pakistani. He was born in Pakistan, but he became a psychiatrist. So there is even help in that community. But that turned out to be my worst psychiatrist. But there is starting to be awareness, even in that culture. What was the first question?
How does Islam view modern medicine in general?
Well, there's nothing against modern medicine in Islam. Medicine is encouraged for Muslims.
Just to clarify, because you said something about the self-diagnosis, you have been clinically diagnosed though since then, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been. I knew there was a problem with myself. Got myself checked by a psychiatrist, and then I got an official diagnosis. And that diagnosis has changed over time, but now it's a concrete schizoaffective bipolar type. There's a psychotic component and a mood component.
Okay, so are you currently still practicing Islam?
I'm not a strict Muslim, but I do pray. I don't fast because I have diabetes, but I pray once in a while, and I read the Quran. And I have to say, I'm still a practicing Muslim, so but I should do more prayers. But I'm still a Muslim. Yes, ma'am. I'm still a Muslim.
Another question that was asked was, on the day of the shooting, were you targeting women specifically?
Absolutely not. I didn't know that the building was filled with women. So that's another big regret I have, that I wish it would have turned out differently, that no one would have been harmed. But especially that women were harmed, it really bothered me for a long time. And I have deep regret for my actions that day.
Another question is, in your culture, is holistic medicine pushed as the first option, or is both pharmaceutical and holistic seen as equal?
My culture is American. I know my background is Pakistani, but I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to how Pakistanis view holistic medicine. But they also use pharmaceutical medicine. But my culture is American. I'm born and raised in this culture, and I identify with American culture. Excuse me, but it's almost dinner time over here. Well, we'll have to cut this short.
Okay. All right. That's fine, Naveed. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that helps people.
Yeah, definitely was. Thank you, Naveed. We appreciate it. And I'll be in touch with you through email, okay?
Okay, I think. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. For sure. Talk to you soon, okay?
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.